Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. So today I'm going to be painting wild windy hair and I'm going to be sipping on some raspberry hibiscus tea today. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, fire red, cobalt blue, Mars black, deep yellow, and burnt umber, which I like to call brown. So you can certainly switch up those colors too if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a standard number 2 pencil that I'll be using for some drawing. And then I have 3 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a number 7 round synthetic brush. And I have a number 1 round synthetic brush. And I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up too if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the large canvas to the same type of paint and brushes and all the good stuff in between. So that's there for you. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be drawing an outline of our woman's head. I'm going to be using my pencil. I'm going to be giving you a couple of markers. We're going to connect those markers. We're just going for some basic outline type shapes that we'll utilize for our coloring in process when we're painting. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to give an outline for the left side of her head, and this will morph into a much more free-flowing type of outline on her head as once we start painting the hair in. But right now I'm just going to give it a nice basic shape that we'll be able to work from. So what I'm going to do is at the top of my canvas, I'm going to find the center of my canvas and I'm going to go over from that about 1 inch and give myself a little bit of a diagonal type of a marker. Then on the bottom of my canvas, I'm going to come find my center point, and then I'm going to come about halfway between that and the end of my canvas and give myself another marker about 1/4 of the way over from the left-hand side. And then I'm going to connect these two with a long kind of curvy, wavy line. So I'm going to start up in through here. This will be representing kind of the top of her head. This is the side, and it's going to be wavy hair. So I just want to really start that process with giving myself a little bit of a wave in through there as opposed to just a straight line. Then on the right side of the head, I'm going to only be seeing a little bit of like a peekaboo spot of the sky over on the right hand side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find like my halfway point up or down my canvas, which I would say is somewhere about here, and then I'm going to come down below that maybe about 1 inch, make myself a little bit of a marker. And then down in the bottom right hand corner, I'm going to come up maybe about 1/2 inch. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect these two with a kind of a curvy line coming in this way, but I'm considering this area in through here to be like her neck. This is kind of like her shoulder or her the bottom part of her neck, and this is kind of like the side of her face. So I'm going to come in like this, then I'm going to kind of just travel down a little bit like this and then over in this direction here. It doesn't have to be anything perfect. It's going to be covered by hair, but this will just give you that start. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a big circular type shape for where the top of her face is going to go. But I'm going to be eventually hiding like half of this with her hair, but I really just want to kind of give myself a basic circular type of shape to start. So on the right hand side, if this is about halfway up or down my canvas, I'm going to come about 1 inch to 2 inches above that and then in about 1/2 inch. This will be my first marker. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the left of this and I'm going to travel almost halfway across my canvas. So if this is about halfway left to right, I'm almost to that marker. So maybe a little bit shy of that by about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the difference of these, come right about in the middle, and then go up until I'm about 2 inches away from the top of my canvas. So something like that. And then I'm going to do from here, I'm going to travel down till I'm a little bit below this marker in through here. So maybe about 1 inch below there, right in through here. Then I'm going to connect these with a big circular type of shape. It does not have to be perfect. It can even be almost like on the squarer side. You want to make sure that you bring these corners kind of out pretty darn far. You don't want this to be cut off in like a diagonal. You definitely want to bring this nice and big around in through here, and just making sure that these corners are nice and round. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. This is just something that'll provide us with barriers for that face. And then what we're going to do is we're going to switch to our large brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your pencil away, make any adjustments, then put your pencil away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting our sky and the base coat for our skin. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm using are blue, white, red, yellow, and brown. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-mix myself a light blue color for my sky, and I'll also be doing a custom color for my skin, but I'm going to do the sky first. So what I did was I pre-mixed a little bit so you can see where I'm headed, but I just used a little bit of blue plus some white. I'm just going for a nice light blue color for my sky to look like she's outside in a beautiful summer, nice weather kind of day. So just a little bit of blue with some white will give me a nice sky blue color. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up at the top. I'm going to be painting this section and this little tiny section over here with my sky blue. I'm going to start with the full color up at the top, and then as I move down the sky, I'm going to start picking up white. So that way my sky will get a little bit lighter as it comes down my sky. I am going to overlap a little bit into my pencil area so that way I have full coverage going across and it doesn't look like I'm painting around. I just picked up white on my dirty brush, so this will start the process of my color getting a little bit lighter and lighter as it comes down my canvas. When I get to a point where it is meeting the height of this little section on the right, I will also go and paint over there as well. So they look like they are at the same height in the horizon or in the atmosphere. So I'm about there right now. So I'm just going to take my brush, kind of come over into this little section over here, get this section painted in. Maybe I'll put a little bit more white down at the bottom in a minute of this section, but just getting that colored in, picking up some more white and just painting in the rest of this section down in through here. So once I've got this all nice and done, what I'm going to do is I will wash and dry my brush in preparation for creating a skin color for the face. Just kind of making sure I've got this nice and blended in, maybe a little bit more white down at the bottom here so I can have a little bit of a gradation in that blue. So now I'm going to wash and dry my brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a skin tone, just a base color for the skin tone on the face. Using my large brush, I'm going to be using red, yellow, brown, and white. And I've already pre-mixed myself a little bit of my skin color so you can see where I'm headed. So I use just a little bit of red. You don't need a lot of red. A little bit more of the yellow. About equal parts of the brown. and then a little bit of white. I add my white slowly into it because I know that the white can be pretty darn powerful and can get it really light really fast. So I'm just adding a little bit at a time, and this is almost right where I want it right off the bat. But if you found that yours was too red or too yellow or too dark or too light, you can adjust it accordingly. I'm going to add a little bit more white into it. What I also like to do is I like to use my own skin tone as a kind of a measuring tool for me on where I'm going to take this color. So you can use your own skin tone, you can use somebody else's, you can feel free to just have fun with it. But once you've got that color, you can just hold your brush up to your skin and see if it's pretty close to whatever you'd like to do. And if it is, great. If not, you just adjust it accordingly. And then I'm just going to paint in this entire area with this color. I don't need to do anything fancy at this point because we're going to be adding a lot of detail on top of this. This is just going to provide us with a nice base to work with as we are building the details on the face. I'm bringing it right up to my pencil, and I'm just kind of using a left to right type of brush stroke. It's okay if you don't get perfect coverage, again, because this is just the base coat. And then once you have this all nice and done, we are going to be utilizing the same brush for the next step, so you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting the base coat of our hair. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush, and I'm going to be using brown paint. I do recommend before you start this step that you make sure that your sky and your skin are dry. So this is that time where you get to take that extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. So I'm going to be using my bristle brush because my bristles are nice and firm, and it will allow me to show the directional brush strokes within the hair on this first layer. I'm using brown on top of this white, so I will be able to have some light spots and some dark spots, and you'll be able to see that as we go through the process, which will provide us a great start to how that hair is going to flow. I'm also going to have the hair kind of coming over the face because we're going to be hiding most of the nose and the mouth and some of the forehead. So that's where I'm going to start. Right now I'm going to start by kind of putting in place where that hair is going to flow across the face, and then we'll add all of the other information on top of it. So I'm putting some brown paint on my brush. I'm going to come, if this is the center of the top of my head, I'm going to come over maybe about 2 to 3 inches, make myself a little bit of a marker in through here. And then on the left-hand side of my circle, if this is kind of dead left, I'm going to go up from this maybe about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, somewhere in through here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect these two with a nice sketcherly kind of wavy type of line. That's going to give me the top section of her hair. And then at the bottom wavy, I'm going to go right about halfway up or down this left hand side. That's going to be where I start that one on that side, and then I'm going to end it right about here. So if this is halfway up or down, I'm maybe about 2 inches down below that. And then again, I'm going to do a wavy line, but I'm going to, in the center of this wavy line, this is where her nose would be. So I'm going to make that bump up a little bit so we can kind of cover the edge of her nose, something like that. So now I know that everything above and below and to the right and to the left of this section here is going to be hair. On the left-hand side, I want my hair to kind of flow down like this on the neck, and from the right I would have it flowing in through here, and over here it's going to be flowing like this. So I'm going to start with the stuff that would be underneath, and I'm utilizing this brown paint in order to just give me this nice flowing type of directional brush strokes. I'm going to make sure that I've got it going right in front of the face, and it's going to cover that skin. It meets right up with that skin. And then on this left-hand side, again, I'm just kind of bringing a lot of this down in this direction in these long, flowy type of brush strokes. And you'll be able to detect some light spots and some dark spots simply because of the brush that I'm using. And I didn't add anything to the brown paint, so it tends to be a little bit on the translucent side, so that will help to allow you to see those light spots and dark spots. You can even kind of rub it at times. You just want to bring it in the direction that you feel that that hair would be flowing or falling. So I'm also going to put some coming up in through here. I will be having some going across, but you can see I'm not making it super thick. I am leaving some light spots in order to tell that story. And now I'm going to start bringing it kind of over in through this direction, bringing it across that forehead and through here. And in a minute, I will pull some out into the left-hand side, but I'm just really kind of getting the general gist of the direction that I want the hair to flow. Over here, I'm going to have it kind of flowing in a downward type of motion. So wherever these two meet, you can just kind of switch your brush direction into a downward type of motion in through here. I've got my hair coming down. Now I'm going to have it coming over this side. So this is the whole neck and face and shoulder type of area. So I'm going to be pulling this in kind of a curved type of motion from the side. So I don't want to pull it straight across. I want it to appear as if it's going around her face, around her neck, around her chest and or the top part of her chest area in through here. So I'm making my brush stroke in a curved way so it will tell the viewer that that's what's happening. This hair is coming around this particular object, and that's going to help to sell the story of this windy hair. So I'm going to bring that all the way across the face. As I get up towards this top where I have that little bit of a ripple, I can continue that ripple thought. So it kind of looks like it's going over her nose, and then I'm just going to kind of continue this curved brush stroke coming over towards the right hand side. So I'm getting close to where this hair is coming straight down, and that's where we're going to start to overlap it in a minute here. This, you really don't have to be concerned about covering the canvas 100% because we've got lots of hair coming on top of this, and we're going to utilize these light spots to give us more definition and information throughout the hair. So we're going to start pulling the hair out into the wind. So I'm going to start up at the top. I know that I want some ripply areas in through here, so I'm just going to kind of go with that curve that I already have. And you can use a lot of paint or a little bit of paint, but as I start crossing over into the sky, I'm going to really give myself a couple of additional motions to give the insinuation of the direction of the hair. If your paint is really thick and you have a really heavy bodied paint, you may want to add a touch of water or a little bit of liquid medium to your brush, so that way you can have these more kind of translucent type of see-through pieces of hair that are kind of catching the sun or catching the air as they're flying off of her head in through there. And if you run through wet paint in through here and it drags a little bit, that's okay. We've got lots more stuff that will help to disguise anything that didn't work out exactly perfect for you. So I'm just bringing some of these down in through here. This is going to be just the hair that's kind of catching the wind a little bit more, and I'm not really looking to get this really heavy and thick and dark over here as it's meeting the air. So that's why I definitely want to have my paint a little bit on the thinner side, and you can certainly, like I said, utilize a little bit of water or liquid medium to your paint in order to get that that softness as it's coming through. I just am going to continue this thought process in through here and bring this hair kind of over in front of the hair that's laying down straight. So I'm just pulling some of this in through this direction and just going to kind of pull it out into the wind. So all of this is just lightly kind of being pulled right into the wind. Again, I don't need a lot as it's going into the sky zone over here, but a little bit will help to show that it's being pulled away from her head. So once I got this done, I'm not going to overdo it. I really just want it to look nice and airy. You can certainly make any little tweaks or modifications that you want, but we are going to be utilizing our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put this large brush away, make any little tweaks that you want, and then you just get your medium brush out and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to do the first step to the face details. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. This is going to include marking off where our eyes are going to go, putting our markings for where the eyebrows are going to go. We're going to do the shadowing around the sides of the face. So it's going to include quite a few things, but we're going to be treating it as the first step. So just know that whatever happens on this step, we've got future steps to come, and it'll help. If anything doesn't go exactly as you had planned, we'll be able to tweak it in a future step. So I'm going to use my medium brush. What I'm first going to do is I'm going to make myself a little bit darker of a skin tone. So I just took my skin tone and added a tiny bit of brown paint to it. So this is going to allow me to make some marks on her face without having them too invasive, and it'll allow me to just start the process of putting the features in place and all that good stuff. So right about here is where I'm going, maybe a little bit darker just so we can see it a little bit better. It will get a little bit darker as it dries. So that's where I'm headed. I'm going to put her eyes in place first. So if you find like the center of your face from left to right, I would say mine is right about here. And like where you want the nose to go. So I'm up from my hair probably about an inch, and then I'm going to go out from that to the right and to the left about another inch to make myself a couple of dots. So center of the face where that nose would be, you're going to come up about an inch, go to the left about an inch, make a dot, go to the right about an inch and make a dot. That's going to be the inside corners of the eyes. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself like an almond type of a shape for the eyes. I'm going to have the outer corner, I'm going to do this eye first. I'm going to go to the left about 2.5 inches and go up just a little bit. That'll be the outside corner. And then I can just kind of connect these with this curved type of line here. And then the bottom, if you keep this down a little bit, you can have that little inside crook to the eye, something like this. And then I'm just going to paint that section in. We're going to put lots of other fun colors and information on it in a little while, but this will just get us started. To know how wide you do the other eye, you can just kind of measure how wide you did this eye. I have a feeling mine's going to end up underneath it's going to end up underneath my hair a little bit, which is totally fine. So all I need to do really is just kind of bring this up and out. I know it's going to be hidden behind the hair, so I'm just going to do a similar type of shape over here as much as I can see of that eye. And you can leave your edges soft. They don't have to be clean edges. Like I said, we'll be doing lots of other information around it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put kind of her little eyelid part on. So I'm just going to give myself a little line just a little bit above that eye and do the same thing on this side. So I'm just doing a nice soft line above it. I'm also going to do the same thing under her eye. So this will give you that little kind of puffed out piece of skin underneath her eye that'll make it look nice and natural. And if you paint into the hair like I did, that's okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this color down a little bit inside of her eye. So I'm going to come in just a little bit. This is going to be the interior or the kind of the edges of the nose. This is just going to help us to start that shadowy type of process. So I'm really just kind of rubbing in this darker color just a little bit in order to kind of give myself the edges of that nose. And this is going to make its way into the eye where I want the eyebrows. So I'm just going to travel up from here and give myself a pretty big section where I want that eyebrow to go. You might want your eyebrows to be bigger or smaller than mine. I'm just going to give myself a pretty dark section, which will be the base underneath the eyebrow hair that I put on in a little while. So this can go pretty close to the eye in through here if you wanted to. And then I'm going to do the same thing over on this side. So I just have this darker version of the skin, which is going to tell the story of where her eyebrows are going to go, and it helps to guide me through the process as I start to build her features even more. Now what I'm going to do, now that I have those in place, I'm going to put some nice shadow around the edges where it's meeting the hair. So I want this to be a little bit deeper and richer of a color than what we just did. So what I'm going to do is you can take your skin tone, and what I'm going to do is just make a nice dark version of it, but I don't want it to be too much muted like this. So I want it to be more on the maybe the more purple side. So I'm going to use a little bit more red and a touch of blue in my mixture. This is going to get it to be like a nice deep shadowy type of color on the sides of her face. You don't need it to be really super duper dark, but something that is more kind of on that purpley side will help you to get a nice shadow along the edges. So I definitely want to have a little bit in through here. So I'm going to just kind of put a little bit over in through here, and then I'm going to need it to blend into her skin. So what I'll do is, while it's still kind of wet, I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel and pick up some of that original skin color. So this way I've got just a little bit of a blend going on over in this area. Again, it doesn't have to be anything perfect. We're just making it look like that skin is just going underneath, or there's a contour to her face in through there. I'm going to do the same thing over on this side and through here. So I'm going to use that little bit of that purpley type of shadow kind of color and just rub it along this edge in through here where the skin meets the hair, and you can bump right into the hair if you want to. Then I wiped my brush off, picked up some of that original skin color, and I'm just going to kind of rub it in and make sure that those two blend really well. And then once we've got this step done, we will be utilizing our small brush for the next step. So you can wash and dry, or actually put this medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint some eyeballs. I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going to be using my sky blue, probably some cobalt brown, black, white, and my skin colors. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to do a base coat for the colored part of my eyes. I'm going to use my sky blue or my light blue to do that. So I want her head to kind of look like it's down a little bit. So I'm going to put the bottom part of the circle is going to be more visible, and it's going to be kind of flatter at the top. So I'm going to kind of do my eyeball, or the colored part, and it's about a third of the width, or maybe about half. If you were to cut this in half, it's about that wide. I'm going to make two markers up in through here, and then I'm going to bring it down in a little bit of a curved line. The bottom part of the eye down in through here will kind of merge in with the skin and stuff like that as we go through the painting process. But right now I'm just going to paint it in with my sky blue color so I can get this vibrancy in the eyes as we go through the painting process. I'm just doing a nice thin coat of it so it will dry quickly for me, and I can make any modifications that I want to within this step, so I don't have to wait for it to dry too much. So just kind of bringing that all the way to the edges. I'm rounding out the bottom, and then the top is going to be hidden underneath her eyelid a little bit. So I'm going to do the same thing over on the right hand side. So, and eyes don't have to be exactly symmetrical. I know that one of my eyes is bigger than the other one, so if yours don't end up exactly the same size from one side to the other, that's quite all right. If, you know, maybe one eye gets hidden underneath the hair a little bit more than the other, but if you can get them pretty similar, that's great. And then again, I'm not using a lot of paint. I am taking my time just to make sure that I do what it is that I want to do, trying to make these top parts a little bit on the flatter side so they look similar to one another, maybe a little bit more rounded at the top there. There we go. And then once I've got that in place, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put the light part next to the eyes. So I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white paint. And I don't need a lot of the whites of the eye to show. So I just have a real tiny bit of white paint on my brush. I'm coming right up close to the colored part, and I'm just going to bring it out and let it fade out into the darkness of the brown that it's sitting on top of. You don't need a lot of bright white in the eye in order to tell people that it's the whites of the eye. Typically, the whites of the eye are kind of shadowed anyways from the rest of the eye that is around it. So I just want to make those edges kind of feel natural, like they're almost fading out into the eye socket area. So I've got a little bit of white left on my brush, so I'm going to do the same thing over on this side. I have hardly any paint on my brush right now, just getting this little bit of lightness to appear next to the colored part, and just letting it kind of fade out into the neighboring tan. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more white, go over onto this left hand side. I'm going to do the same thing, go right in this next to this left side of here, making sure I don't have a lot of paint on my brush, and then just kind of blend it out softly into that neighboring area. So if you ended up with too much white on your brush, you can always come back with that tan color that we used in the previous step to dull it down a bit. You could use a little bit of gray, you could use, whatever is working for you. You could also use a little bit of liquid medium on your brush to get the paint to be a little bit more fluid, so you can blend it out nice and softly like I'm doing. So if you're using heavy body paint and it's not flowing kind of in a similar way to mine, you can certainly thin it out with either water or a liquid medium. And then I'm just going to kind of amp up little bits of these light areas just to make sure that it is in fact light enough, but you can certainly kind of tweak that as you're adding the details to it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to start adding the darker details to the colored part of the eye. So washing and drying my brush, I'm actually going to start with black paint on my brush to put the pupils in place. So I want these pupils to be near the top of her eye. So I have just black paint on my brush. You can even put it crossing over or touching the top of her eye in through here. And I don't need a lot of paint on my brush. I'm going to have it come about a third of the way down, or maybe almost half the way down her eye. I'm allowing for these soft edges because I'm going to put some more colored part on it in a minute, but just kind of putting that pupil in place. So a little bit of black paint on my brush, allowing for this pupil to come down, I would say maybe a third to halfway down that eye. And again, this is just going to allow us to understand where she is looking. And then once I've got that on there, I'm going to start putting some darkness around the edges of her eyes and around the edge of the pupil. So I want my blue to be nice and kind of rich looking. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to take my cobalt blue, and I'm going to add a little bit of brown paint to it. So this is going to give me this nice dark bluish green type of color that I'll utilize that with maybe a little bit more brown and black as I see fit. So I've got this dark bluish green color, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start creating the dark areas on the eyes, which would definitely be a nice ring around the exterior part of the colored area of the eye. So just softly getting that part in there. I'm going to start, I do a lot of dotting when I'm doing eyes, so I'm putting some of this dark blue, bluish green color around the pupil. So that's going to help to get that to really blend out with these dark colors. I'm going to put a lot up towards the top. So again, I've just got that dark blue kind of color on my brush. Going to start dotting down towards the bottom. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of lightly, as I'm starting to run out of paint, lightly start to dot my way towards that center part of the color. So this way it remains nice and dark along the edges, and it kind of fades into this lighter area in the middle. I'll incorporate a couple more colors in a minute, but right now that's kind of where I'm starting. I'm going to do the same thing on the other eye. So I've got that dark blue on my brush. I'm going to start with a little bit of a ring around the colored part. So something like this, just lightly dusting a ring around there. Then I'm going to start tapping in this dark color right by the pupil to make sure that that is incorporated nice and dark up at the top, so that also can either look like it's in the shadows, or it just looks like we're just seeing the sparkly part of the eye down at the bottom. So you can make yours into whatever kind of color that you want, and then just lightly tapping as I get towards that lighter part. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little skin part on the inside corners. While this is kind of drying, I do want to do a couple more steps to that, but while it's drying, I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put a little skin part in the corner of her eye. So I'm going to use the base tan that we created, plus a little bit of red on my brush at the same time. So I'm not going to pre-mix a color. I'm just putting those two colors on my brush at the same time. And then I'm going to make this little pink area in through here. So this, to me, you know, needs to happen near the eyeball in order for it to make sense. And then I'm picking up a touch of brown paint to close off the eyeball part, just give it a little bit of a rounded area in through here, and do the same thing over on this side. So again, that just kind of delineates the eye from that skin part on the edges. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put a shadowy dark area at the top of my eyeballs. So I'm going to be using a little bit of brown and black paint on my brush, and at times I might use a little bit of water so it is translucent and kind of like an ink consistency. I want the top of the eyes to look like they're being shadowed by this eyelid. So I definitely want my paint to be translucent or transparent so I can see through it, and so I have the control, and so I don't paint over or lose the definition of the stuff that I did underneath it. So I've got that transparent paint. I'm going from left to right. You can see I'm kind of going over where that the eyeball or the pupil part is. And then if you feel that you want any of these edges to be a little bit darker, you can certainly bring that brown-black mixture down along the edges of the colored part of the eye. That gives a little bit more drama if you feel that that would work on your composition. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. So black and brown is what I'm using as my shadowy color underneath that eyelid onto the eyeball itself. And then once I've got that established, then I can sit and fiddle with the darkness of the colored part of the eye. If I feel like I need to do anything more to that, I certainly can. You can pick up your dark blue, you can pick up your black and brown, and do any more adjusting that you feel is necessary over on these parts. And then I just have little twinkles left to put in the eyes. They'll look much better once we put all of the eyelashes and stuff around the exterior, but right now just kind of making sure that I've got this information the way that I want to. Maybe I'll put a little bit more shadow down these bottom two. I hardly have any paint on my brush, just kind of wisping it along the bottom edge in through here. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put some additional kind of twinkles in the eye. So you could use anything that you want. You could continue to use that light blue, you can use yellow, you can use white, you can really have fun with whatever you want. I'm going to use a little bit of white, and that's where I'm going to start. I was like, what colors am I going to use? I'm going to just start with white, I guess. So I'm going to put white in through here. Yeah, actually, I'm going to use a little yellow too. So white plus a little yellow. Going to do a nice it'll maybe make it look like it's a little bit on the greener side. So white plus a little bit of yellow, just to put some extra little sparkles within these eyes. You could even put one over the pupil part if you wanted to, and just play with the little sparkly twinkles in the eye. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit over in through here and just have fun with the color of the eyes. Maybe you want yours to be more green or brown. You could make brown eyes. Whatever works for you. Just put the darkness around the side, put little twinkles of speckles of those colors in the middle, and then just make any little tweaks that you want. We're actually going to be using our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your beautiful eyes done in through here, you can wash it or put your small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to do the second step to our facial details. So this is going to be inclusive of the entire face. It's going to be highlights and shadows in order to make the contours of the face pop out. So we'll get the forehead to pop out a little bit, the nose, the cheek, and then we'll put some shadows around the eyes to get those to have more detail to them. So I'm going to be using my medium brush. I'm going to be using a bunch of colors. I'll be using my skin color, this shadow purpley color that we used. I'll make another darker skin color as well, maybe a little black, and definitely some white too. So how I'm going to start this is I'm going to start around the eyes. I'm going to make myself a custom another shade of tan so I can have almost like a more of a burnt type of rusty color to the skin around the eyes. So maybe it looks like she's wearing a little bit of makeup or something. So I've pre-mixed my color here so you can see where I'm headed with it. What I did was I, in essence, just took my skin color and then I added a tiny bit of red and a little bit of yellow to it. So I'm just making it a little bit darker, a little bit richer, a little bit with more of an orangey type of tone to it. So it works. Oh, maybe you can add a little bit of brown to it too. So it represents that skin tone only a little bit darker and more in focus and closer to us, whereas shadows will kind of recede. This I want to look more like it's kind of a makeup type of color. So I'm using a little bit more of the red and yellow in it. So I don't need much, just a teeny tiny bit on my brush. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of get it to intermingle over here on the sides of her face. If you ever have put eyeshadow on or makeup or anything, you know that you want to just blend it out into the neighboring areas. So that's kind of what I'm doing with this loose type of brush stroke. You'll be able to kind of see the colors underneath it. I'm going to put a little bit in this area in the kind of interior of the eye. Maybe I'll put a little bit of this up in the eyebrow area as well. And you don't have to color it in 100%. I'm just kind of rubbing it so it's got these soft edges to it, and it allows us to see kind of more of the shape of that eye. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I don't have as much to go in through here because a lot of it's kind of hidden, but I still want a little bit of this color underneath that eye. I'll put a little bit maybe on the eyelid part, crease in through here, and then definitely some up in this more up towards that eyebrow area, and then maybe again a little bit in the eyebrow actually itself, like we had on the first one. Put a little bit down in this crease, because in this area in the eyes it typically is going to be a little bit darker, so that'll work out just fine for me. And then what I'm going to do, maybe I'll put a little bit up and through here too. I like this color, so I'm just going to add a little bit here too. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working my way towards the light, which will be on the forehead, maybe a little bit on the nose and on the cheeks. So you can wash your brush if you want to, but if you're digging the way that color's looking, what I'm in essence going to do is just pick up some of my skin color plus a teeny tiny bit of white on my brush. So skin color plus white on my dirty brush. This way the colors will just start to talk to each other and work out nicely. So I'm going to rub a pretty big area on the forehead in through here. So wherever I want the skin to kind of pop out, that's where I'm going to put the lighter areas. So I want the skin to, or it to look like she's got like an eyebrow bone area. So if you put a little bit of a lighter color at the top of those eyebrows in through here, that'll make that area look like it is coming out a little bit more. So something like this, but make sure that you're just utilizing your skin color as well with the white. You don't just want to have a whole bunch of white in through there and not blend it and not have it blend with the actual skin. And I want her forehead to pop out a little bit, so I also used it in through there. So white plus a little bit of my original skin color is helping me to get these little bit of contours on these areas to show up. And this is again just going to allow that forehead plus the top of the eyebrows to pop out a little bit, and then I just get it to blend in with the skin above it. So whatever, even if you have to pick up more of that skin tone, you can certainly do that. And then on the nose I'm going to do the same thing, so a little bit of white plus my original skin tone. I just want to give myself a nice kind of light area down the top of that nose, and then I just get it to blend out with my skin color. So if you need to, you just pick up some of that original skin color, having the brightest area on the top or the middle of the nose, and then just get it to blend out a little bit. You can leave a little bit of darkness in through here. That'll just make it look like it's dipping down a little bit in that area. So don't feel like you have to blend this light area all the way up into that forehead. This just tells a little bit more of the shape story of the nose. And then again, if you need to blend it out a little bit, just kind of keep picking up that original skin color to make sure that it blends nicely with the surrounding area. And I'm going to do the same thing on the cheek. So a tiny bit of white plus my original skin color. I want the cheek to kind of pop out in through here a bit. So my white plus that skin color, now I'm picking up more of my skin color to just get it to blend out. And that way it'll make it look like this part of the cheek is in fact popping out a little bit more than the rest. And be careful when you get down to the hair. You want to just make sure it looks like it blends, you know, it's going under that hair. So even if you have to bump into the hair right now, go for it, because when we paint the hair on top later, that will cover up that area. And then you just want to get it to blend in with that little shadowy area that we had put on next to the nose, this little contour area. And if you have to pick up any of the darker color to get it to blend in a little bit more, feel free to do so. Just kind of rubbing this out in through here. And you might find that you need to do multiple layers in order to get it to really do what you want it to do. I definitely, I think I'm gonna lighten this nose just a little bit more so we can see it pop out just a little bit more. So I just added a touch more of my white plus my skin color. And that's the beauty of doing acrylic paint. You can keep just kind of adding these little bits of layers on top of layers in order to get them to really all talk well together. I definitely need to do something up in through here and on the side to make it look like it's receding behind that hair, behind the hair a little bit. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush right now, and I'm going to add a bit of black paint to my brush. Black, actually black and brown. I want to make sure that I have a nice dark shadowy area that's kind of emerging from behind the hair. So I don't want it to I don't want it to come out too far. So I just put the black on there, and I'm just really scooting it in underneath the hair, so that way it looks like the head is just kind of emerging from underneath the hair. And you might find that you want to do more of this or less of this real contrast of color as it's meeting the sides of the head. Underneath here, I will be putting some additional shadows and stuff when I do the hair as well, but I'll put some of one of my shadowy colors in a second. But right now I'm going to do this other deep shadow over here on the left side. So black with a little bit of brown is going to just kind of give me some real nice dark shadow going underneath this hairline over here on the left hand side, more so near the eye as opposed to down in through here, because we can have some light hair kind of coming out in through there, but definitely underneath this little piece and over here on the left hand side. So you can put heavy dark black underneath there, and then just kind of fade it into the skin as it's coming out and emerging onto the face itself. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a little bit more shadow underneath this eyelid. So I just still have a little bit of that remnants of the black and the brown. So this is going to help me to sink the eyelids in a little bit more. And again, this is one of those things that as you're going about doing this, you might find that you want yours to be in a different appearance than mine. Maybe you want your eyes to be bigger or smaller or whatever is visually appealing to you. It's your, it's your sun person. You can certainly make her look however you would like to make her look. I will be putting more details on the eyes when I do the eyebrows and eyelashes and stuff, but right now just trying to get as much of this information over as the pieces of the eye kind of dip in and out, maybe a little bit more darkness over here to account for the shadows of the hair, something like that, and then just a little bit more over here on this right hand side where that eyelid kind of meets the upper portion in through here. So again, feel free to explore the different colors of the eyes that you might want and how deep you want some of the areas to go, or what color makeup you want your person to be wearing. It's going to be totally up to you. I think I want a little bit darker in these corners too, so just rubbing in just a little bit more darkness in through here, and then you just kind of fiddle with it. Do as many layers on your highlights and your shadows. I think I actually want this area to be a little bit lighter, so I'm washing and drying my brush, and I'm going to go back into that skin tone plus a touch of white as well, just so I can illuminate this forehead. I really want it to look like she's out in the sun and she's catching some of this beautiful sun rays, and it's catching her skin and all that good stuff. So just keep fiddling with it. Get it as light and bright as you want it, or keep it nice and dark and suntanned. And then once you've got this done, we're gonna switch to our small brush for the next step. So you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna finish the eyes, all the little tiny details around it. So this will be eyelashes and eyebrows and any little highlights and shadows that I feel might benefit me to incorporate. So I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going to use a bunch of colors. I'm definitely going to be using some black, brown, white, and some kind of skin colors along the way. So my biggest goal here is I definitely want to add some eyelashes and eyebrows, and then maybe some extra little highlights in the skin and shadows if I want, maybe some little highlights in through here. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to first finish up any little areas on my skin that I think would benefit from some additional information. So I'm going to put some white paint plus my original skin color on my brush. I want to put a little bit of extra highlight up at the top of these eyelid areas, so they look like they're a little bit fuller and that they pop out just a little bit more. So I'm just adding a little bit of white plus my original skin color up in through here just to get those to pop out just a little bit more, making sure I leave my edges soft so it blends in with my eyebrows and any other information that I want in through there. Maybe I'll put a little bit of a highlight in through here as well, so white plus a little bit of my skin tone. I think I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight in this little corner of the inside corner of the eye down in through here too. So something like this, just a little bit of white plus my skin tone. And I'm hardly using any paint on my brush right now, and I keep controlling the quantity by just wiping it off on my paper towel. So this will just show you that little kind of glistening corner of the eye, of the skin in through here, gives it that, I don't know, little skin look. And just, if you need it to blend in, just pick up a little bit more of your skin tone to get it to blend in. I'm going to do the same thing over on the other eye. So white plus my original skin tone. I'm going to put a little bit of an extra highlight up at the top of this eyelid area, again, just to make it look a little bit fuller and blend it out into the neighboring areas, let it blend into where the eyebrow is going to be in a minute. And if I needed to pick up any of my original skin, many more of my original skin color, like I'm doing right now, to get it to blend out, you can certainly do that. I'm going to use that same color combination, white plus a little bit of my original tan, to give myself a little bit of a glistening highlight on her this little eyelid part in through here, and well, maybe we'll put a little bit more over here too, and then a little bit down in the corner of the eye in through here. And again, your original skin tone is what's going to save the day and get you to blend it out. So if you do too much, just bring back some of that original skin tone. You can also use a little bit of water, or you've got the darker skin tones that you can incorporate. So you can certainly just kind of keep tweaking it until you feel that you've got it blended out as much as you want to. And so it doesn't just look like a line there, but it looks like it's got some kind of substance to it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish any skin parts around the rest of the eye. So I think I might want a little bit more shadowy areas. So brown and black is what's on my brush right now. Maybe I'm going to put a little bit of shadowy, kind of deeper shadow in through here. I didn't feel like I had it dark enough, so just a little bit more of that brown and black, and even just a little bit of water on your brush will help to get this in here. You could associate this with the area where the eyelashes are going to go, as well as maybe she's wearing a little bit of eyeliner or something on her eyes, so feel free to make this into whatever you want. I think I'm going to deepen that a little bit, maybe a little bit in through here, and do the same thing on the other eye. So when I'm doing this, I'm really not doing a lot. I just am trying to incorporate those little tiny nuances that I feel are visible when you're looking at somebody's eyes. So you're seeing a lot of little pieces of skin, you're seeing lots of little creases, you're seeing little wrinkles and stuff. She doesn't have many wrinkles, but some people like myself do have a couple extra wrinkles that you might want to incorporate. So you could certainly incorporate any of those little nuances that are important to you, or make you feel like you're going to be allowing for this to look even more natural. Maybe we've got a little bit of more crease down in through there. I think this is looking good. Something like that. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm thinking that the skin part looks pretty good. Like I don't really need to do much more. I might fiddle with it a little bit more as time goes on, but it's looking pretty good to me now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on my eyelashes and my eyebrows. So I'm washing and drying my brush. I'm going to start with brown paint on my eyebrows. So this way I can kind of build my way to the darker eyebrows. And I want this to all just kind of cross over this area that I've already kind of designated as where I want the eyebrows to be. I'm really just using brown paint right now with a little bit of water on my brush in order to give myself the direction of the single strands of the eyebrows. You can make yours as full as you want or as sparse as you want. I have a set of sparse eyebrows on my head, so she might get some very full eyebrows. She might get the eyebrows that I really want to have. So I'm just taking some little bit of brown and making the first hair pass with brown, so I don't go too dark, but again, just a little bit on my brush, and I've got a little bit of water on my brush as well to give myself some nice thinner type of strands that you can use a smaller brush. You can really have fun, cross over a couple of the pieces of hair over into the lighter skin at the top. That'll make it look nice and natural. Now I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black paint on my small brush, definitely plus a little water. I want this to be a nice thin consistency so I can control the tip of my brush, and so I can have nice little skinny strands. So I'm going to work on my eyebrows. So again, just a little bit of black on my brush in order to get these single strands to just really show up and appear to be visible, because I don't want her to necessarily have eyebrows that aren't visible. She's got a big head of hair, so I want the eyebrows to kind of tell the same story that, she's got lots of hair, so she has lots of eyebrows too. So I'm just kind of allowing myself to give these narrow type of strands, and the water helps me to control the thickness of them, of the strands. And if you get to a point where you're like, oh my God, I just did a really thick eyebrow that I didn't really want to do, just let it dry and you can paint over it. You can certainly have you can certainly bring back some of your skin color and stuff if you need to. So I'm just reloading my brush with a little bit of black paint. Sorry if my hand gets in the way. I'm trying to not get it in the way, but I want to make sure that I have my eyebrows with some good curves and, have natural kind of strands to them. So sometimes my hand needs to be positioned in a certain way. I'm going to make maybe a couple of the darker strands down the center. And of course you can fiddle with that all you want. I'm going to put a couple of eyelashes on her in a second here, just kind of pulling up in this little curved manner, some additional eyebrow pieces in through here. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to start on her eyelashes. I think I said eyebrows, I meant eyelashes. Let me just fiddle with this for just a second more here. Make sure I've got everything that I want. That's looking pretty good. Just getting it to blend in with her skin and through there. So now just a little bit of black paint on my brush is where I'm going to start these eyelashes. The trick to eyelashes is you want a lot of them to come up and out, but you can also have some kind of crossing over the eye itself, the colored part of the eye, that makes it look like they're a little bit more natural. So I'm starting with just a little bit of black, and I'm going to start kind of slow. I want them to be a little bit shorter over here, and I'm going to bring them, they come out from the edge in through here, so I'm definitely going to have them kind of come out and up, and I'm going to have a bunch of them coming out over into this corner of the eye in through here. And again, if you feel like your brush is getting away from you and it's making too thick of eyelashes, switch brushes or practice on a little piece of paper or something so you can kind of get your rhythm going. Sometimes this type of step really takes a little while to get the groove. I'm bringing some down in front, kind of curving towards the down and out as opposed to just up. So it makes it look a little bit more natural in through here. So a little bit covering over that corner of the eye and trying not to overdo it, but definitely bringing out some of these strands in through here. And then I'm going to have a little couple in the corner of the eye as well, kind of coming down this bottom left-hand side, something like this, the bottom of it. And again, you don't need to do much. If you went too dark, again, you can always come back with a little bit of a highlight, the lighter color. I'm going to go ahead and go right over to the other side now, to the other eye. I'm going to start kind of in the center of the eye in through here, and then just start kind of pulling them out and up. I know that I've got some hair that's going to kind of help to disguise some of this information for me anyways, so I don't really need to do a whole heck of a lot on this side. And again, if you feel like you've done too much, you can always just kind of let it dry and come back and give it a little tweaks. And then just fiddle with it as much as you want. If you wanted a couple of highlights, you could certainly go with a little bit of white paint on your brush. Not much, just a couple of little tiny itty bitty highlights. So I picked up a tiny bit of white paint and I'm just kind of dabbing in a couple little twinkles in those eyelashes, but that's not necessary. If you feel like you would like it, feel free to do it, but again, not necessary. And then we're going to be utilizing our big brush for the next step. So once you've got your eyelashes and your eyebrows and your eyes all nice and done, you can put this small brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our hair. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm going to be using are black, brown, yellow, and white. And a combination thereof as we go through the process. So what I'm first going to be doing is I'm going to make sure I have enough shadows and dark spots in order to give my hair a lot of dimension and movement. So I'm going to be picking up a little tiny bit of black paint, not a lot, just a teeny tiny bit, and a little bit of brown. And I like to wipe my brush off on the side of my palette. This will make sure that I don't have much paint on my brush at all. So I'm going to have a little bit of shadow in through here as this hair is kind of flying over it. I'll have some shadows down in through here, again, just to add enough movement to it, maybe some more shadow up in through here. So I'm going to start over here. Again, I don't want a lot of paint on my brush, so I'm going to err on the side of caution and just wipe it off on my paper towel. And I'm just going to kind of follow this line where I have my hair coming out there, and then I'm just going to kind of pull some of this darker hair down in the downward direction with the curve that we've already kind of established. You can even put a tiny bit of water on your brush if you want that paint to kind of seep into any of those little crevices, just to make sure that you've got it fully covered. I'm going to have some sweeping hair over here, so I don't need to do a lot in this place where it kind of sweeps across, but I definitely want to make sure that I have some of this darkness down in through here. And this is a time where you'll probably want to make sure that all of your canvas is covered. So if you have little peekaboo spots of the white still showing through, just kind of get that painted in. And again, I don't have a lot of paint on my brush, and I'm using a little bit of water so I can get these dark spots without getting them to be too overwhelming. So I'm reloading my brush with black and brown. I'm going to do some of this kind of coming in this direction as well. Again, just to kind of establish the shadows within the hair without getting them to go too much. Maybe we've got a little bit in through here as well. We're going to have a lot of light hair also coming over in this direction, but again, just wanted to incorporate a few shadows in there as well. Still going to just reload my brush with a little bit of black and brown and a touch of water. Maybe I'll pull some of these little darker areas out into the hair that's flying out as well. So again, not much. I'm really just going for just a few areas that are a little bit darker than others, just so we can accomplish some good dimension throughout the hair. Maybe we've got a little bit more coming on in through here. And again, you can see through my paint right now because I have the water on my brush as well. I'm going to also put some shadow up here on the right hand side, so making sure that this area up in through here is fully established, that it's maybe being shadowed by this hair up above and it's kind of coming down in a downward motion. I also want to put some shadow underneath the hairline as if it's kind of lifted away from the head. I'm going to just use the remnants that are on my brush right now to get a little bit of this soft shadow underneath the hairline. I'm also going to kind of pull it out as if there's shadow from a couple of the pieces of hair, so I can kind of give myself these faint little shadows on the face of what would be a couple of the pieces of hair. So again, this is just watered down paint that I'm using on my brush to give myself the illusion of these shadows on that forehead. You can also utilize your small brush to do that if you want to. I'm probably in a little bit going to use my small brush to do some singular strands of hair, but right now just kind of getting these shadows on here. So now that I've got my shadows in place, what I'm going to do is I am going to put the lighter hair on, or the highlights to the hair. So I'm going to, I pre-mixed myself two colors. I have a tan color here, and I have like a light golden blonde type of color here. How I got to these was I utilized my brown. Oops, let me put this in this direction. I'm actually going to use my medium brush to show you how I got, so I can spin this around. So I used, for here, I used brown plus a little bit of yellow and white. And this gives me this nice goldeny type of tan color that we can utilize as some beautiful highlights. Maybe a little bit more yellow in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself also this blonde type of color. So how I got to that is just yellow and white. So I've got my yellow in through here. Oops, it's going to have a little bit of brown in it too. And a tiny bit of white paint, maybe a little bit more white, just to get it to this nice kind of soft pastel-y type of yellow. So once I've got those two colors, now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to put the highlights on my hair. So I'm using my large brush. I'm going to wash and dry it so I don't have too much of that black left on it. And I'm going to start with the tan color that I created. And while I'm doing this, I want to utilize the brown stuff that's underneath to help build these colors, so I don't need to paint over the whole thing. So I've got the tan color on my brush, and I'm going to start over here on the right hand side utilizing this kind of the corner of my brush in essence to kind of give myself a little bit more of this direction to the hair. I definitely want to make sure that I cover the majority of her face as well, so it doesn't look like we have missed part of her hair and that she's missing part of her face underneath. So just make sure that you kind of covered that as much as you need to. You can also pick up some of your original brown too. So if you get to a point where you're like, well, I want some more brown, just pick it up on your brush. The hair is meant to look like it is, you know, working, everywhere works together with one another. So you can certainly pick up multiple colors on your brush. I'll put some little flyaway pieces on the face in a minute, but right now, just going to utilize that tan color as I kind of pull this around here, not painting over all of my original brown. I'm utilizing that as the kind of shadows between these lighter pieces. So just kind of maybe looking for some light spots to put this tan in here. And when you get around the edge like this, you can totally pull out these little bumpy areas. That'll make it look like it's a little bit more natural as opposed to a clean line. And then I'm just going to kind of start sweeping this across, following the original kind of footprint that we had for the hair coming along, giving it like a little bit of a bump in through here, just making sure that I've got all of my canvas covered. So I see some little white spots in through here, so I'm utilizing my tan just to get those colored in. And then I'm going to start bringing it out into the air. We're going to add a little bit of that yellowy blondie color in a minute as well, but right now just kind of establishing the I would say probably this is kind of, oops, that was a little bit much. Fingers can help get stuff away too. I had too much paint on my brush there. There we go, that works better. This to me is kind of the dominant, probably the true color of the hair. The brown, the dark brown was maybe the shadow areas. The black is also shadow. And then this is more, if there wasn't a lot of light, this would probably be the dominant color of the hair. And then I'm gonna maybe put a couple little of pieces in through here, not a lot. I hardly have any paint on my brush right now, and then just kind of bringing this out in through here. And again, I'm just having fun with kind of already the established movement that we had shown on that first pass. So I'm just kind of following wherever those directional brush strokes were, just continuing to put the paint in that direction. I'm going to put some up here. Let's see, I want this kind of coming down in through here as if it's kind of coming over the side of her head like this, getting these light spots to kind of be filled in, picking up more of that tan color. Maybe she's got a kind of a spot that's flipping up in through here, and you know, you can certainly have your hair in a different windy direction than mine. Just explore the freeness of the wind kind of taking this hair and just pulling it out into the wild nature type of a place, and you know, have some flying up, have some flying out in different directions, whatever is speaking to you. Just enjoy the process. Make sure that you've got all of the areas painted in. And then once I've got it pretty well established. I'm feeling like this is pretty good. I'm going to start adding some of those little blonde, the real bright blonde pieces, which is going to be that light yellow that we came up with. So I'm just kind of looking for any areas that might need a little bit more work in through here, and then I'm going to put some of that blondish color on. So I'm going to use, I didn't wash my brush, I'm just going to pick some of this up, and I'm not going to do it in as many areas. I definitely want a lot of these highlights around the edge to have this. Maybe I'll put some up towards the top of the head, like that's closest to the sunshine, so maybe we'll put some up in through there. Maybe I'll get a couple of pieces to kind of fly out in through here. And as I'm going towards these lighter pieces, again, I don't need as much. So it's just think of these as like the little pieces that are being caught by the sun, and they've got the most glistening aspects to them. If your color isn't exactly what you had anticipated, you can tweak it. You can, just get it into the realm that's going to make you happy as the painter, because that's the most important part. And then I'm going to add a whole bunch onto these edges over in through here, making this a really free flowing hairstyle. She's got some wind just being brought out. And when you get to these edges where these almost singular type of pieces would appear, you can certainly just pull the paint out a little bit farther than that original footprint. That's going to make it look like you've got more of these additional single strands coming out. So it doesn't always have to follow exactly the original path. You can make these, you can make it go in a little bit different direction, and that'll make it look like the pieces are a little bit more singular. You may even find that you want to use a different kind of brush to do this final layer of the hair. That will, if you feel like you want to have more of the singular type of brush stroke, or the little individual pieces of the hair, you can certainly utilize a smaller brush. I'm probably going to utilize a little bit smaller of a brush when I get to, I'm going to do a few single strands around the face, but right now I'm having fun with this one. You can utilize a little water on your brush if you want to. Make sure that you've got as much of the lightness as you want. I will add a little bit of white to some of these pieces in a minute, but right now just kind of making sure that I've got as much of the sunlight. Wow, this is looking so pretty. I kind of wish that the whatever weather that she is involved in right now, I really wish that I was involved in this kind of weather. It's very cold where I am right now. It's like below 0 temperature. So I think I'm channeling I want to go to the beach in this painting right now. I'm putting some of this light, couple of these light pieces right on the bridge of her nose, maybe pulling these down a little bit more in through here. And again, just let it feel like she's, she's really having a fun time in the wind. I'm going to start picking up a little bit of my yellow plus a touch of white as well, so I can get a little bit more of a couple of vibrant type of pieces in through here, so we can get a little bit more of the sunshine kind of glistening on a couple of these pieces of hair as they're traveling across her face and through here. And again, you can really explore how bright you want this to be. I'm putting a little bit of that lighter yellow plus a bit of white over in here. Again, it's just every time I go a little bit lighter and lighter as I eke my way closer to the sun, it's making this look a little bit more natural. Like the sun is just really kissing the edges of her hair, making these beautiful blonde Goldilocks shimmer in the sun. So just making sure I've got this in through here as well to make sure we've got a nice crossover in through here. I'm going to, oops, that was lots of paint on my hand. Hold on one second. Let me just get a little bit of water on my brush. There we go. That's the joy of having dirty paint hands as I do this. So what I'm going to do in a second here is I am going to put use a smaller brush to put a couple of dainty pieces going across her face, but I'm thinking this is looking pretty good. She's got tons of movement in her hair. It's kind of coming all over here. We've got some beautiful highlights, especially where I feel that the sun would be catching it the most. So now I'm going to switch to my small brush and just put a couple of little tiny pieces across her face. So maybe a little bit of black and brown and a touch of water on my brush. I've got a couple of little pieces maybe kind of coming out in through here. So again, these are those little nuances as you're doing a painting like this. If you want it to look more realistic, just adding these tiny little details at the end can really help to sell the story. So maybe we've got a couple of little pieces coming in through here, maybe some down in through here. And again, I'm just using a little bit of water on my brush to get these little single strands to just kind of show up and make them look pretty realistic, bringing it across here. I think I'm going to pick up some of my light yellow and white to give myself a couple of these lighter, oh, maybe a little more white, a couple of these light pieces, maybe just going across the bridge of her nose. So something like this. And you know, you might find that you want to do a different way, whatever is exciting to you, just to get this all to make it make sense and be exciting for you to look at. And then fiddle with this all you want. We do have one little step left to go, and it's going to be with this tiny brush. So make any additional pieces in your beautiful person's hair and then you can wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to be using my small brush. I'm going to be using black paint, and I think I'm going to sign this one in the bottom left. I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you want for your identifying mark to be is totally fine. It's your painting. You get to sign it however you would like. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a beautiful person with some long, lovely locks flying in the wind, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.